No one deserves to die that way. The words of a resident of a social housing complex where an elderly man may have laid emaciated in his squalid unit for several days before being rushed to hospital, where he died this morning. The notorious bank robber and former long-term prisoner Leslie Maurice Green, who was in his early 80s, had been living at a South Auckland complex run by the New Zealand arm of the Australian not-for-profit Compass. Earlier this year, some residents complained to Checkpoint about Compass's handling of antisocial behaviour at the complex. At that time, Compass had received more than $3.3 million in government subsidies since 2016. It houses vulnerable people and, as part of its contract, is expected to connect tenants to, quote, appropriate support services, social supports. Residents living at the Papatoetoe flats say they raised a red flag with Compass more than a week ago. Len Christian says Mr Green hadn't been seen out and about for days, which was unusual for the keen cyclist.
He was always riding his bike. You'd see him in New Lynn or Papakura, just everywhere around Auckland. So he'd always say good morning. He'd always call the cat over and give the cat a pat before he left, and when he'd come back he'd always stop and say hello and again pat the cat, and then he'd have a meal, and that's why I got worried, because he always brought us leftovers, takeaways around for the cat and put it in my garden, and I hadn't noticed it, and that's when I got concerned that if he's not going out he's not eating.
So when you saw the bike parked up there and you hadn't seen him, what kind of went through your head?
Initially, I thought he might be dead in the unit. His curtains were pulled. I knocked on the door was locked. I got no answer the first time. And it was a couple of days later when a friend of his come around because he hadn't seen him either for a number of weeks.
So you went and you tried to make contact with him?
Yes, yeah. I also asked the others if they'd seen him, the other tenants in the complex, and they all sort of started thinking, oh shit, no, we haven't seen him either for a while.
Did you tell anyone from Compass that you were worried?
Yes, I raised it with the manager and said I'm really concerned. No one's seen Les for at least 2 weeks at that stage. And she said, I'll go, just leave it with me, I'll check on him. About 5-10 minutes later she came back and said, oh no, he's fine. I don't know whether she actually made contact with him or not. But there's no way he could have deteriorated that fast within a week. That was a week prior to me ringing the ambulance.
Someone else had noticed Les wasn't around either. He'd normally cycle each week to visit a mate in Green Lane, but was a no-show 2 weeks in a row. So that friend went looking for him too. And on Tuesday, he and Len managed to get into Les's flat. What they found was utterly disturbing. I know this is really hard, Len, but can you tell me when you got into the unit and you saw him, what condition was he in?
Disgusting. Worse than pictures you see of the Holocaust during the Second World War. He had no meat left on his bones. He was just skin and bone, basically. I helped him sit up for the ambulance crew, and my fingers actually went in between his rib cage. It was that bad.
I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
Could he talk to you at that stage?
No, he just held my hand. And, yeah, basically. And I just asked him to go with the ambulance because he didn't want to go. And he agreed. And, yeah. I wasn't even able to see him at the hospital when I went in. He was in intensive care, and they were hoping to get him into a ward.
So he went straight to intensive care?
Yes, yeah.
You could see the conditions in his little apartment?
Yes.
Can you describe those to me?
At one stage of my life I was a cleaner for Otahuhu Borough Council. I've never seen public toilets as bad as the condition of his unit. The shower, the toilet were black, never been cleaned. Microwave was black inside, maggots on the bench. His mattress on his bed was just covered in blood spots, and you could actually see the bed bugs jumping around. It smelt of stale urine. It was very hard to breathe in there. the smell.
So it was filthy.
Yeah.
And you don't have to take Len's word for it. Another resident filmed inside the squalid unit after Les Green was taken to hospital. To the bathroom first. The toilet is absolutely caked with filth. It looks like months' worth. The camera pans to a grey-looking basin, thick with grime. The person filming moves into what looks like a motel kitchenette. The fridge door swings open. It's empty, bar a few wrappers and scraps. Open cans, discarded containers, milk bottles and remnants of food litter the bench. Mixed in with all of that rubbish are what looks like maggots. In that same open-plan room, the floor is covered with life's leftovers and discards, and the bed is heavily soiled, flecked with what could be stains or the bed bugs that Len has described. Simply put, it is revolting.
And to get to that stage, it would have taken a long time. It wasn't filth from a week or 2 weeks. It was just, yeah.
And him, from when you saw him on that day and the last time you would have seen him out wandering around or on his bike, how would you describe the change in his physical condition?
Oh, dramatic from one extreme to the other. It was just, yeah, it's hard to describe. It's basically like looking at a breathing corpse. It was that bad.
You don't think he had been eating or drinking?
No.
What do you think that Compass's obligations should be to tenants?
I think the impression I got when I was offered the property through WINS was that they were a social housing provider with wraparound services.
Having seen what you saw, Len, having seen Les and seen his room, do you think it's possible that this could have happened in just a few days?
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
It must have been hard for you to see him like that.
It was. Yeah. Yeah. Especially when it was so unnecessary. If they had have assisted him 6 months ago, or from the time he moved in, he'd still be with us today. You know, there's no need for anyone to die in those conditions. It's just disgusting in our country that it's allowed to happen. And my fear is they're getting new apartments all over Auckland, and they're not looking after the ones they've got. And they're taking on more and more clients every day. And, you know, with no services or systems in place to protect them or to look after them. It's mind-boggling.
Resident Len Christian there, and Compass Housing says it is a difficult balance between respecting someone's privacy and providing for their welfare. They say they did check on Les Green but didn't go into his unit. Compass says it has fulfilled its responsibilities to its tenants and it arranged for another social agency to visit him, but Mr Green was taken to hospital before that could happen.